It's Brad here at eTrailer, and today we're taking a look at the Curt A25 fifth wheel hitch. Now, this configuration is also going to come with the S25 sliding base, which is great for short bed trucks, but also this kit is going to give you the rails to custom mount up to your truck. So it's really important to make sure that you're using our fit guide to get the proper fit. That way those rails underneath that bolt up to get our ISR standard rails up top are going to custom fit your truck. That whole combo is going to give you a fifth wheel hitch with a 25,000 pound capacity, the sliding base, which is great for short beds to get clearance around turns, and also the rails to get it bolted up in your truck. Going along with capacities, you have a vertical load limit of 6,250, and that's a good amount of weight. That's going to be that downward pressure that's put on our fifth wheel. Now, taking a close look at just the A25 version, not the base, we're going to be focusing on the head and the base that attaches to the sliding rails. This is a great option for a pretty heavy duty load capacity. And when it comes to picking a fifth wheel, you want one that's going to be over what the gross trailer weight rating of your trailer is going to be while it's all loaded up. So anything, under 25,000 pounds should be fine. But if you're only towing a trailer that's maybe 15,000 pounds, you might want to look at something like the A16 that's going to be better suited towards that weight. But with that being said, 25,000 pounds is going to cover a good majority of what you're going to be hooking up to that would have a fifth wheel. And this one has a lot of nice features that makes it a really great option when it comes to choosing a fifth wheel. And some of the great features that this has that not all fifth wheels have is a fully articulating head. So I can move this 360 degrees and it's going to be cushioned the entire time, which is going to be nice for hooking up. It's going to contour to the kingpin, so even if you're not on flat level ground, the head is going to take that suspension and be able to get this locked in place rather than the truck having to flex or the trailer having to flex to get it to hook up. And when you're hooking up, this has a really thick jaw that's a 360 wrap around, so it's really going to get full, security around the kingpin. Some of the other ones are a slide bar with a spring, and it holds it in place, but it's rather loose. Whereas this one, when you engage your kingpin, it's going to completely go around it and overlap, and it's pretty thick here. So, where all that weight is attaching, you want it to be a strong connection, and a 360 wraparound jaw is the best. There's a lot of other brands that have it, but this is definitely something I recommend for some of those heavy-duty towing applications. A feature that you really don't see on too many fifth wheels is going to be the go, no-go gauge. And this is going to face towards the front of the truck. So if you have a cab camera and you're hooking up, you can potentially see the indicator letting you know if you're in a proper state to be able to do that. So we have our kingpin simulator in here, and it should say that it's coupled. But as I'm ready to disengage and I open this up, it should say uncoupled, and that way you're ready to get your trailer all hooked up. Now, also, there's going to be red to where if it's not fully engaged completely, it's going to be at a state that it's not safe to tow. And that's really nice because sometimes you think it's engaged, but you may not be exactly there. This pin should only go into place when it's fully engaged. But again, having that go, no-go gauge is good peace of mind to know that it's engaged and you're not going to just pull away and have it separate as you start to leave with your trailer. Another little feature as I engage and disengage our jaws is going to be the pin that's chained to the head, which is really nice. You don't have to worry about losing this if you pop it off and it flies off somewhere. You do need this to make sure that it's going to stay in place. Having it chained here makes it super easy. You're always going to have it on hand and be able to safely tow. Another thing that I like is the adjustable height that you can accomplish really easily with this. So it has plates that hold the base in place, allowing you to feed that hardware in, which is kind of something that you don't see on many of the fifth wheels. Some of them you have to hold that in and start threading it while trying to support that base. It's not the case here. Those plates were able to hold that, and all I had to do was torque down these bolts into the height configuration that I wanted. There's 4 different settings that you can go with. I went second from the bottom, and that's kind of a good rule of thumb, but when it comes to different trailer applications, different heights of trucks, you want it as level as possible. So I think it's really nice that it truly is just 4 bolts to adjust the height, and then you can get it all dialed into exactly what you need. And even at the highest setting, I normally don't have issues with tonneau covers, but on this sliding base, if it was fully maxed out, we might have a little bit of trouble with our tonneau cover being able to close. It kind of depends on the truck, the tonneau cover, and really at the end of the day, you want your trailer more level than anything, and that may or may not interfere with that tonneau. Now, something that I recommend to people that maybe don't tow full time and want their truck bed to be a truck bed again, you can remove this fairly easily, but they do make it a lot easier by being able to separate the head from the base, and that's going to cut down a lot of weight and make it to be potentially a one-man job. I was able to get this base and the head in place in pieces by myself, which definitely helps out a lot. Some of these can get really heavy really quick, and this whole assembly by one person would be extremely difficult to do, but removing the head is as simple as taking out the linch pin. This large handle pin comes out from the back side, and then from here you can grab the head. Now, there is rubber cushioning that gives you that articulation, so it might give you a little bit of resistance, but as you kind of walk it back and forth, you can get the head out and make it super easy to set this aside and then work on the rest of it. While we have this off, there's also some nice maintenance points. You have two Zerk fittings right here on the jaws. Makes it super easy to be able to grease it up each time too by being able to take off the head. And you can kind of see how it all actuates. It's all based around this rubber that will sit in here. Our pin goes through, but that's how we get all of our smooth rotation. And that's also going to cut down on noise, chucking, and just a rough ride overall. Now, looking at the sliding base, this is something if you have a short bed truck, or not a long bed, I should say, it's worth getting because many times you'll put yourself into a bind, and as you start to make those tight turns, you run the risk of the camper potentially hitting the cab corners of the truck. So you are limited as to how sharp you can turn. It really comes down to the camper that you have or the trailer that you're towing. But it's nice to have on those short beds just in case. That way you're not unhooking. You could simply slide this back, make that turn, and then latch it back in place. There are ones out there that are a little bit easier to operate from the side of the truck. This one, I get it for security. They have this pin in place for the slider, but that does mean you are going to be more than likely hopping in the truck. I don't know if you may have a step ladder, you could probably pop this off, but it's not super easily accessible. Once the pin's out though, the handle, if you just pull this back, it's going to keep that to a disengaged state, and then you can just simply slide it. And then once you get it to that slid back position, it's 12 inches of travel. It's going to automatically go into this position. You could pin that up, but chances are you're going to make that turn and then get this back into the normal position and then pin it up. Now, if you've never used a sliding fifth wheel, it's pretty simple. As I mentioned, if you have to make that sharp turn, you would pull that pin out, and then pulling this handle disengages it. So you don't have to continuously hold it and then have to move it back. This keeps it in disengaged. And then so as you pull forward with the truck to get that clearance and make that turn, it's going to automatically put it back in that position. You can see it drops into place. So then you can navigate, do your turn, and then when you're done, you just simply disengage again and then move this back forward. Once it's back in place, you'd pin it up, then you can hit the road. As far as the base, it's extremely smooth feeling. They've done a really good job of making it a smooth actuation. I mean, I can easily move it. So if you're hooked up, it's going to make it, a breeze to be able to use. And I really like that. I also like the cushioning that they used on the head to base connection for that articulation, because when it comes to towing, there's going to be a lot of metal to metal contact generally, and cutting down on that is going to make it a lot quieter for you and the people in your vehicle, and it just sounds a lot healthier rather than hearing clang clang as you go down the road. And Curt's really done a good job of making sure that it's going to be a good quality for anyone using it. They've done little things that you don't see in other manufacturers. Simple, but a rubber pad that goes between the sliding base and the ISR rails is enough to, again, cut down on metal-to-metal contact and potentially keep noise down to a minimum. Now, speaking of rails, I already had a rail kit installed, but this is a Curt rail. This is going to be exactly what you would get with the kit. So that's going to be rails in your bed that are ISR standard, and that's industry standard, meaning that almost all fifth wheels will have similar distance. They may be wider, so that's why you have these slots, but as far as lengthwise, they're going to drop into these. So if you have a different brand of fifth wheel that you ever wanted to swap out to, no problem at all. You would just simply drop it in and pin it. The rails, as far as installation, most of these are bolt up with sandwich plates, brackets that go around the frame, and then you bolt these through it. So when it comes to drilling, really all that you're drilling is holes for your carriage bolts to go through. A lot of it's not that hard to do. Depending on trucks, some are a little bit easier than others. It really is just going to be under the truck a little bit, bolting up frames to factory spots, and then using that as a template to get these all mounted up. You can normally knock these out, and I would give yourself a solid 5 to 6 hours, maybe an extra set of hands to help. We have videos on a lot of different installations of rails and a lot of the Curt rails as well. So make sure you use the fit guide. That way you can get the proper fit, and that way those custom brackets are going to fit to your truck and you can safely tow. Now you do get everything you need to tow down the road, but you still have to get these rails installed. For me, working at a shop, they're not too bad to do. We have plenty of videos for you DIYers if you're going to do it yourself. But if this is beyond your scope, maybe you don't have the place to do it, the tools to do it, or even the want to do it, you can reach out to our dealer locator. You can find someone close to you, get these rails installed, you can get your fifth wheel dropped in, and they'll get you towing down the road. What's nice about this whole kit is many times people will buy the rail kit to be able to drop in a fifth wheel and maybe don't have the fifth wheel yet. But in order to get these spaced out properly, you almost always need to use a base to be able to get that measurement to ISR standard. So luckily we have extra ones here, but a lot of times people haven't made that purchase yet. They want to get the rails first. The fact that you already have the base means that you're going to be able to get this installed a lot easier. So as we covered a lot of the features, this makes it stand out as one of the more premium fifth wheel options, but they also include things that's thoughtful, like a lube plate. Seems simple, but the fact that this comes with the fifth wheel is not something you see all the time, and this is just going to make it nice and smooth and lubricated as you go down the road for that kingpin to be able to rotate. Having a lube plate means that you're going to have nice lubrication for your kingpin on the head of your fifth wheel. A lot of times you'll see these coated up with grease, and it's not to say that you won't have grease on here, but it's going to make it a lot cleaner for when you do take the head off. I think this is a much better option than just normal, lubricating it up with grease. It makes it very dirty, which, kind of part of it, but also if you can salvage yourself from getting grease all over your clothes when moving the head, it's nice and it's included. So definitely a nice little added benefit from Curt. If you're looking for a really nice fifth wheel and all the accessories necessary to get it installed on your truck, especially your short bed truck, this is a great option. I think you're going to be really happy with it overall. If there's other brands that you want to shop around and look at, one of the premier ones that I like to always recommend is B&W. They have sliding options. They're going to work with an ISR standard rail just like you see here. Now you can't really get those fifth wheels kitted with their rail system, but you can get B&W rails if that's the case. But again, being an ISR standard, doesn't really matter what brand you go with. It's all going to go up and bolt up directly. I do like the B&W stuff, but again, it's going to be a manual slide as well, where you do have to get out and pull that handle. I like their design just a little bit better. This one, it's rather short, and having that pin means that it is going to be a little bit tricky in order for that to work. It's still there. I think it's a great option to have, and I do recommend it for short beds, but if you want to completely just not have to worry about getting out of your truck, there are options that will auto slide for you. And the two that come to mind are going to be the Demco Auto Slide and the Pull-Right Super Glide. They're both great. I guess the caveat with those is they're extremely heavy. There's a lot of mechanisms in there to allow that auto slide feature to work. So that is, I guess, the downside is to take that in and out of your truck every time is going to be tricky. But again, the fact that you can make those tight turns, it'll automatically slide for you and automatically slide forward is pretty cool. So you have some options, but if you go with the A25, with the S25 Slider and the rail kit on your truck, I think you're going to be really happy. And at the end of the day, you'll be towing down the road. It's going to be nice and quiet and cushioned, and I think you're going to be happy with it. So hopefully this helps you decide what is going to be the best fifth wheel. And that was a look at the Curt A25 fifth wheel head with the S25 Slider and custom rails for fifth wheel installation.